Hey there, guys. Today's video is a discussion with Robin Sullivan, acclaimed enrichment specialist and co-owner of the Leather Elves, in which we talk about the beginning steps of training. So approximations, which are the small steps that make up a training plan, understanding how to use those effectively, and then we move on to target training. Target training is something that is immensely beneficial, can be used on a wide variety of species, can be used in both protected and free contact, and is ultimately one of the most versatile tools that you could have in your training toolbox. So in this video, we go into the ins and outs of all of that. We even show you guys how to put together a simple target stick. So if that is something you guys are interested in seeing, make sure to stick around because that's going to be coming up right after this.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan from the Leather Elves, and this is Jack Pine from High Redbird. Hey, Jack, how's it going?
Doing pretty good over here, Robin. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It didn't snow today, so life is good. And I suppose that's the same for you too, right? It didn't snow in Texas. There we go.
No, we're in the
So
mid 70s.
No, I wore the polo shirt. I was trying to get into it's almost springtime mode. But now you're pushing it. I'm just saying. So, so tonight we're going to talk about understanding approximations and beginning target training. So I know we've got a couple of reminders we'd like to do at the beginning of the session. Jack, you want to handle that?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you guys all for being here. For being here on time too, because you guys are here right at the very beginning when we start. We start every single Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Now, if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on any of these sessions, you want to make sure that you like the Leather Elves on Facebook. If you do that, you'll be able to watch these sessions, you'll be able to communicate with us. And if you are logged into Facebook, it will give you a notification that we are starting a live feed for you guys to see. So you definitely want to do that. You want to make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the High Redbird YouTube page as well. All of these discussions, if you miss out on them while they're happening, you can watch them on the High Redbird YouTube page. One of the really fun things I've done, I've put together a playlist of every single session that we have done. So if you're going on a road trip and you want to introduce your friends to a lot of really, really fun things, you could have that going in the background on the radio as well. I think that'd be a wonderful way to have a road trip that nobody is really taking right now, but wishful thinking.
You could just drive around and listen to the podcast or the live streams and consider it a road trip.
I mean, yeah.
I had someone tell me today that they listened to it was Joanna Roth's husband told me that they listen to it if they can live while they're cooking dinner.
Very nice.
So, however you do it, we're just really glad that you're here with us. And I mentioned, I think it was last week, that you guys are all becoming more interactive. It's our little like Flock Talk family, and we really appreciate those of you that tune in all the time, and we're really excited for people who are bringing their friends. So there's a lot of good stuff happening, and we're really enjoying the progress that we're seeing you all make through different things that we've talked about. So, hi everybody. Megan's here, Diane's here, Julie's here, Adrian, Mary, bunch of folks. Hi guys, it's really nice to see you. Well, not see you, but I see your words. So I feel like my dad calls it on TV. We're on TV. So I'm getting there soon. But anyway, so Jack, let's talk about approximations. When I think Jack and I have mentioned before that when we do this, we prepare for Friday night. I know it doesn't always appear that way, but we prepare for Friday night and we do a little bit of research on our own. We're always telling you guys to do your research. And so we've done some too. So we've got definitions. You want to share the definitions we've got, Jack?
Yeah. Before we do that, though, do we want to share our challenge with people?
Oh, we could. You're right.
Yes,
You're right. Why
I
don't
think
you?
that'd be all right. So, as you guys know, we pretty much always have a trivia question. So, if you watch the session, you're able to answer the trivia question correctly and first, according to Nick, who is our man behind the camera. He is the one, we don't let you see him because that way you don't know who to be mad at if you don't win. It works out really, really well for us. But we are going to be doing a trivia question later tonight. So we are going to be doing a giveaway with that as well. But we wanted to issue a challenge for you guys. We are watching these live streams grow every single week. And Robin and I enjoy that immensely. So we are issuing a challenge for you guys. If you can share this stream with your friends, and it's pretty easy to do, you can click share and it'll give you options to share it to your feed as it's happening right now. Our goal is to hit 50 people watching at one time. And if we are able to hit that, we are going to give away even more prizes. If we're not able to hit that this week, that's going to be a recurring challenge for us. So we'll try again next week. But we have seen what you guys are able to accomplish when you put your minds to it. You guys accomplish great things. So I don't really have a doubt that we'll be able to hit that tonight. But we wanted to go ahead and issue that challenge to you guys.
All right. So I know that you guys are all sitting out there going, challenge accepted. You're going to do it. We talk about how much we enjoy hearing that, and hearing what's going on and seeing the numbers move and seeing the numbers go up. So that's what we've been talking about all along is reinforcement. So Jack and I are highly reinforced, which means that you will see an increase. There's a probability that it will increase the behavior that we're doing. So, all right. So the challenge is out there. All right. So let's get back to approximations. We've got some definitions. What have we got, Jack?
All right. So we have two definitions we want to go over with you guys. One of them is much easier to digest than the other, which is fun for definitions of approximations. But so both of these definitions are going to come from the AZA and AZAC. So that's the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Association of Zoo and Aquarium Keepers. So an approximation is just a small step in a series of progressive steps that leads to a behavioral goal. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. So an approximation is just that individual step. Now, when we talk about approximations, typically we are talking about shaping using approximations, shaping a behavior. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do the very, very dry professional definition. And then Robin, if you want to give the layman's definition after that. I think at this point you have the energy to stay awake while I go through this dry definition and then interpret it for everyone. Shaping by successive approximations is the process of gradually modifying some property or responding by differentially reinforcing successive approximations to a goal behavior. Shaping is used to produce responses that might not otherwise be emitted or might be emitted only after a considerable time. The variability of the responding that follows reinforcement usually provides opportunities for reinforcing further responses that still more closely approximate the criteria that define the goal behavior.
Oh, you're done? Okay, good. So shaping by successive approximations is taking those small approximations, putting them together to reach your goal. Pretty basic, right? Janice Lang is saying that I'm not behaving. I'm behaving, Janice. Or then we wouldn't be any fun if I did. but really, what we're trying to say is you take the approximations, you break things down, and then you build them together to reach the goal that you've set. I mean, it's hard. The definition is much more difficult than the act itself. And I think you will find that if you break things down into approximations, it just makes it so much easier. Um, it, it, it takes a task that can sometimes be overwhelming and create little pieces to work on. So you see those successes happen. You see that you get reinforced for what you are putting out there, for what you're asking from that animal, and it later on becomes that behavior. So
And I think people should recognize a lot of animal training definitions are incredibly dry, incredibly scientific. One thing you have to remember for animal trainers, a lot of times, there's a little bit of judgment there because people will say, "Oh, well, you just play with animals all day. That's all you do. What can you possibly know? There's no science there. There's no anything." So the definitions are sort of the definition of scientific. Animal trainers aren't going to talk to each other in this manner. So don't be overwhelmed or intimidated if you see a definition and you think that's really intense, because they're almost designed to be.
Mary's absolutely right. She says it's like breaking a computer program down into modules. So, Mary, you should know that prior to this, we were talking about computer stuff. Jack and I were like, okay. Nick tells us what to do and how things work. Actually, he just tells us he'll make it happen. And then he tries to explain it to us. And Nick is great. Nick breaks things down into really small approximations. But Jack and I are that animal that needs even smaller approximations when it comes to computer stuff. So, all right.
Yeah, I love how Mary's like, it's like breaking it down into modules. I don't understand what computer stuff breaks down to. You could tell me it's like breaking it down into spoons, and I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. So it's taking something complex. So the way I like to think about it is, if you take a dance lesson, do you remember those diagrams that had the feet that, like this goes here and this goes here and then this one goes this way, and then it's kind of like that, or that video game where you dance, dance something, I don't even know what it's called. But it takes the whole dance and it breaks it down into steps. And it's like, Mary says it's magic. It is. All right. So now we'll have to admit it's magic. Jack and I are really not trainers. We're just magicians. But seriously, approximations take something and make it more understandable for the animal. So you've got to think about what their level of communication is. And then you've got to also look at, are you communicating adequately or clearly enough? And unless you have small approximations, you're going to get into trouble that way, I think. I mean, do you agree, Jack?
Yeah, I think we're going to go ahead. I'm going to hit it early on this time. It really is a study of one. When you are thinking about the approximations that you are going to use for your animal, it is going to depend on, uh, you know, the individual animal. It's going to depend on the species of animal. Certain animals are more receptive to problem solving. Certain animals are, you're going to have a completely different approach between a pelican and a camel. So you have to think about things like that. The approach that you take can be dependent on the training history that animal has. Obviously, if an animal has been trained to do numerous behaviors before, it is going to understand the process. It's going to understand you want something. I'm going to do it. You're going to reinforce me, and then we're going to go to the next step. Whereas if it's a first behavior, your animal may not necessarily have that. So training may be the first thing that you need to work on. So it really just depends on your individual situation.
And there's that reinforcement history. If an animal comes to you and has never done any kind of training before, they've got to figure out, how does that work? Nancy brings up a great point. She says she's learned the importance of teeny tiny approximations, like a shift in weight or the slightest movement towards a desired object. Those kind of observations are what make approximations successful. So you see, okay, I'm asking for this, I'm asking for this, and it just gets a little bit longer, a little bit more. And it's kind of like, you wouldn't ask a child to do calculus. You wouldn't ask Jack to do rocket surgery. You just have to kind of take it in small steps. And, I know Diane appreciated that. Diane, where's the heart? I need it. But you're right. They are learning how to learn. It's really about process. We're all used to the process because we are trainers. We are, by nature, we try to elicit responses using reinforcement. It's just kind of life. And so we've got to teach our animals what that process is. And by breaking it down into small approximations, you're not asking for a giant leap. So Jack mentioned too, it depends on the species, the individual, that study of one piece. And I think it also depends on the trainer. It's different trainers know how to read an approximation differently. And so I may look at something and say, okay, we're ready to move on. We're ready to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more difficult. Whereas somebody who is not as accustomed to doing that may look at it, and say, oh, I want that approximation down pat. I want that 10 times before I'm ready to move on to the next one. Do you agree? I mean, Jack, do you think that's the case?
I think you have to be very, very comfortable with your pacing. We've talked about this before. We're going to talk about it again. I want people to know that for professional animal trainers, one of the main things they do to be successful is soliciting the help and advice of other animal trainers. Training sessions are always recorded, so you can look at them after the fact to see, was there anything that you missed as the session was going on? You will have other animal trainers observe and critique your training sessions, because they may be picking up on something that you didn't see in the time. Maybe they're picking up on something that wouldn't be in the frame of a camera if you recorded a training session. And I feel like when I talk to a lot of people who are starting animal training, it's almost like they want that success. They don't want to have to immediately try to talk to somebody because they feel like, they're not succeeding at animal training. And that advice, that piece of working with other people is what will make you successful. Small approximations, and if you are not making the progress that you want with your animal, seek advice. Even if you are making progress that you are comfortable with, seek advice. I think you're going to find that you're doing better in those situations.
Absolutely. And I think, Adrienne brings up a good point. She said that you need to be ready if your animal does take a giant step forward. And I think that's so important. It's about it's about that relationship you have with the animal that you're training. You're building the relationship as you go, but you also need to be very aware and very observant. We talk about the videotaping your sessions. We talk about bouncing ideas off other trainers, but being able to read your animal's body language and read what's happening during that training session, it will dictate how those approximations go. It's not just about, okay, well, I've finished this, I can move on. Melissa says she seeks a lot of advice. Melissa, that's awesome. I have watched you take huge leaps with Zorro and really done a great job with training with Zorro that you might not have been able to do if you didn't seek out that advice. And some of it is just validation. We need to be validated as trainers. And sometimes it doesn't just come from the animal. It comes from fellow trainers. It comes from other people in the community. And Jack and I do it a lot. We talk about, how would you do this? What do you think about this? well, if I'm working on a consult or something, if I'm working with an individual on how to get past a plateau or, whatever the case may be, I'll say, Jack, I'm going to suggest this. What do you think? And there's a group of trainers that I really count on. A lot of them come from International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators. Some are from when I was doing a lot more zoo consulting, and it's kind of it's a resource.
When Robin,
You
I think you used a term that we have not yet used on the live streams before. What is a plateau?
Okay, so a plateau is that point you get to where you're completely ridiculously frustrated. You've got your animal so that's the layman's version. You've got to the point where your animal's doing, you're moving forward, you've got some approximations under your belt, you're like, okay, I'm going to move on, I'm ready to move on, and the animal's like, nope, hit the brakes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm good with this reinforcement that I'm getting. I don't need to do any more. Look, you wanted this. This is what you're asking for. I did it. Nope, don't need to do any more. That's a plateau. And plateaus are not insurmountable.
I completely agree, and I would also like people to know that if you are doing any measure of animal training with any number of animals, you are going to hit plateaus. You are going to have times where you want to pull your hair out because I swear I am a better animal trainer than this. I have trained animals to do more difficult things than this. Why can't I teach this pig how to sit down? Sorry, I'm dipping into personal experience this week. No, so they happen, and it's really, really good to, sometimes you may have to look at your plan and see what you're working on. For approximations, I think one of the things that new people don't realize is that they are already using approximations,
Absolutely.
whether or not they're doing particular training. Uh, I think probably the best example of that is I think we're all familiar with if you have a bird that is a little bit frightened of new enrichment items, you may start off by showing that bird the enrichment item from across the room. And then maybe it comes to a table next to the enclosure. And then it is on the outside of the enclosure. And finally, it's on the inside and the bird's interacting with it. And that is an example of approximations. You are slowly shaping that behavior. And ultimately, the behavior you want is for that animal to interact with, or honestly, to not be fearful of that piece of enrichment. So you're already probably using approximation. So they're not that scary.
And I think a lot of times that happens, Jack, too, is that we've got approximations going on and they're being called other things. So that process has been called desensitization for years. And so people are doing, well, I'm just doing desensitization. Well, that's a form of training. And people, are like, oh, I'm not a trainer. You absolutely are a trainer. I will guarantee that if you have an animal or a partner in your life, then you are doing training. So,
I'm going to tell you right now, if you tell your partner you are training them, it will not go well. And if they think you are training them, it does not go well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not one of the animals that you train. Giant quotes. Okay. So, Kathy brings up a good point. Changing the reinforcement can help with the plateau. She learned that one the hard way. They get bored, and it's totally understandable, right? So, it's kind of like you don't get a raise at work. And well, unless you change that up a little bit, that's my reinforcement, and I'm kind of bored with it, and I'm not going to work any harder than I'm already working. And we expect our birds to do those kind of things. So what is shaping? Joanna tried clicker training with her husband. Did it work? Okay, it hasn't worked yet. A whistle training. There you go. The clicker's too hard to manage. It's, I told you I'm not coordinated enough for that. So Joanna, that might be your problem. But I won't tell him you said that. So So shaping is the next thing we want to talk about. So we've talked about approximations. I think it's pretty clear what an approximation is. So what is shaping, Jack, in easy terms? We don't need the long definition.
Using approximations to reach a goal.
That's easy, right? Pretty
And we're back
basic.
to our idea of it's all goal based. So
Mhm.
if you want this to be successful, you need to have a goal in mind for what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And it's kind of, I think of it too as like steps. So, if you're looking at a staircase, so you don't want to go from the bottom to, you can't go from the bottom to the top unless you're, super athlete. You can't go from the bottom to the top without taking those steps in between. And so they may meld together eventually. Your approximations may start to kind of move together, but you're not doing, they're still in there. There's still approximations, and you just need to look at it as you go as that shaping plan. So Jack, when you write a training plan,
Mm-hmm.
how do you work the approximations in?
So part of it is going to depend, like we said, on the individual animal. We're typically it's going. I write it, and it's if you remember in college having to write outlines for things, and it's step one, step two, step three. And that works really well for me because then when I am working on the training of that animal, if you have step one, two, three, you may realize in the process of training this animal, hey, step two needs to have a step 2A, a step 2B, a step 2C. You sometimes need to break some of those steps up. You sometimes need to, or rather, your animal will lump several of those steps together. And it's a wonderful feeling as an animal trainer when that happens. But I typically will have steps and a set amount of time because I want to have a goal for hitting different steps. And sometimes I'll say, okay, we're going to work on step one and step two for the next week. And in one session, the animal's like, okay, I'm done. I've got that. What's next? And sometimes we need to extend that because the animal it's on one of those plateaus. It just doesn't get it. So that's something that works really well for me when developing a shaping plan for a particular behavior.
Adrian says here, staying on one approximation too long can cause an animal to get stuck. And that's part of that being ready to make that next step if your animal takes a bigger leap than you expected. And the behaviors, you can put behaviors together, not just the small approximations. They become approximations, but some of them are they work by themselves on their own. Okay, I asked for that. Okay, that's the behavior I'm looking for. Okay, I asked for X, Y, Z, and you get what you're looking for. But then if you put them all together, at that point you're shaping, and you can put several behaviors into a shaping plan. And I think you also need to be not you need to be careful you don't get stuck on a shaping plan. I've had that happen. Jack, have you ever had a shaping plan kind of go awry?
Yeah, like I've had times where it feels like I am fixated on no, these are what the steps need to be. And sometimes you just need to roll with it.
Mhm.
One thing I want people to remember for me, training is a way for you to build a relationship with your animal. I've said it before, I'll say it again, that I don't think there are some people that view training as the ability to impose your will on an animal. And I don't think of it that way at all. I think of it as the closest to communication you're going to have with that animal. You're going to have a great relationship. If you are frustrated, if your animal is frustrated, you aren't building that relationship. So sometimes you just need to take a step back to look and see what you're trying to get out of this, how things are working. But yeah, I would definitely say try to be mindful of that. Don't get bogged down on this is what the plan needs to be.
Right. And I think, you have to be a shaping plan can be fluid. So it's not like Jack said, I followed this step, this step, this step, and now you need to get to the next step in order for us to move on in this shaping plan. You can take that, you can adjust it, you can go, but it's also okay to go back a step. So if suddenly you've got that plateau going on, okay, what do I do now? Maybe it's time to take that step back. All right, maybe we need to ease into this next approximation from a different angle, in a different way. As Kathy mentioned, maybe we need to change up the reinforcement. But it's really about being self-aware. We talk about building this relationship, and you're building a relationship as you're training, but the excitement part of the excitement is when you hit 31 viewers when you're on your way to 50. But what I was going to say was part of the excitement and the interest that you've got going there is making sure that you're communicating in a way that your animal understands. So when you get frustrated, when you hit that point where you're just, I've hit a plateau and I don't know why the animal's not making any progress, you might need to take a look at those videos that you've been doing that we keep telling you that you should do, and see where's it kind of falling apart. How do I adjust what I'm asking for and how I'm requesting this behavior or this approximation in order to get past that plateau?
Yeah, and I think so. Melissa just gave us a really good example. She had to go back a step with Zorro, her kite. She was Dremel training him, and he got scared. And that's
Mhm.
actually pretty common when you're teaching an animal something that involves something mechanical or something that is potentially scary. The first time you introduce them, there is a chance they may just be curious rather than scared. They can become scared after they become desensitized to it. So sometimes you do need to go back a step. Like I said earlier, sometimes you need to take one step and break it down into subparts. And you're only going to know that as you're going on with this training program. So yeah, just know that your shaping plan, not only it is okay to change it, you are probably going to end up changing some aspect of your shaping plan while you are training.
Well, I mean, it goes back to remembering that we're working with living creatures. We're working with living sentient creatures. So things are not always going to go as planned. It can be something as simple as there's a distraction that you didn't anticipate. So that approximation may fall apart. What you're asking for in that approximation may fall apart. And it's not necessarily the training isn't good or the individual isn't your animal isn't understanding. It could just be, today's not a good day to train. And so you need to be aware of all the different factors that go into your plan as you go through it. And it's never, I mean, Melissa, I think it's wonderful that Melissa recognized, okay, I got to go back to step one. It's not great that Zorro got scared, but in her eyes, what she considers scared. But I think it's a matter of being willing to go back those couple of steps, to go back those, maybe several approximations, maybe back to the beginning. And maybe the training doesn't have to change entirely. Maybe it's just about working and getting more repetitions with that approximation successfully. So,
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's important, that there is no rule book that tells you, oh, this didn't really work. I need to go back one step. Or this didn't work the way I wanted. I need to go back two steps. Like, you need to decide, where was the last time that your animal was really comfortable with that behavior? Where was the last time you were really comfortable with how that behavior was progressing? And you may even want to go a little bit before that, because then you're probably at a point that your animal has a masterful handle on those steps. So by interacting with you, training just those approximations, it's going to be really positive for everyone involved.
absolutely. And I think it's about being intuitive, being training is an intuitive art. People talk about, oh, I'm not a good trainer. Training is a skill that I don't have. Training is truly an art form. And I think, yes, there are steps and we can give you guidelines and we can give you suggestions, but you need to find your own training style. You can follow the steps. You can, use all the definitions you want. But if you're not intuitive to what's going on in a particular setting or situation, it's going to be difficult for you to progress and for your animal to progress. So I think you've got to consider, why am I doing this? What's my goal? What's happening in this moment? And really trying to hone in on how do I make this moment, how do I make the animal successful in this moment? So,
well, and another thing that I've had happen, and Robin, I wonder if this has ever happened to you, if you've been training a behavior, you're working on these different approximations, and you realize as you hit a certain approximation, either, hey, this is where I want to stop. This is a behavior that I want. This is just the final behavior that I want. Or you're working and you're hitting those approximations and you hit a point where you realize, okay, the work required to get to what I was initially planning to be the finished goal does not seem to be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And is it okay? So I wanted this, I was trying to get this to happen, and maybe it's just not worth the effort on my part or the animal's part. And I think it's really about why. Why am I doing this? What's the end goal, I guess? And is it truly worth it? And does the effort equal the outcome? Let's put it that way. And, I think there's been some great comments and suggestions here. Kathy said that attention span matters. So yes, we do have some birds that are members of the short attention span theater group. And we really have to think about that. Certain animals will work and work and work and they love it. And training is really positive for them. For others, it's like, meh, yeah, I had it. Okay, now I'm going to go do something on my own. And you've got to be aware of that. It is definitely up to the learner. And we talk all the time about things being bird centered. And this is one of those times when you've got to listen to your animal. You've got to be aware that, okay, it's time to close that window. And Danny also brings up another good point here that she mixes up reps of behaviors that the animal knows well. If she gets to that point where they appear to be stuck or frustrated and she does have to backtrack, she'll do things that they know well, like targets or vocals or things that, so they're successful. And the other thing about that, Danny, too, is you can end things on a positive note. You can end a training session instead of the bird that lunges because he's frustrated. Ask for something that he's going to be successful at, and then you can close that training session out by, with a positive reinforcement moment. So Danny, is Mom watching this week? She promised she would, but we don't want to hold anybody to anything. So, no calling anybody out.
But
I'm going to read these if you put them up. So just if Mark is listening, just be aware. I am going to read these out loud that, attention deficit is where her training issues with her husband happen. I don't know. We could do a session on how to build those relationships, Joanna. We could. So I'm just saying. But Julie brought up another good point too. Seriously, relocating the session, a different, perch, a different room can rebuild confidence after an unintentional aversive. So things will happen. Jack and I have talked about this. There's those moments when you go, oh, that didn't go well. I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't what was supposed to happen. And then you've got to kind of regroup. You've got to rebuild that relationship. Have you had that happen, Jack?
You mean like when you're training an umbrella cockatoo at a conference and he flies into a wall?
Kind of like that. Yeah, that could be good. Um, it's, and Joanna says if it's in a new spot, it might be an issue. Yeah, kind of. Sometimes it is, and we expect our animals to function in the way that we decide. Okay, this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to go to this new place, and we're going to do this new behavior, and I'm going to do this outreach program, and everybody's going to be great because they know the behavior. Not always. Sometimes that falls apart. And then you got to go back. And for those of you that are doing outreach, if anybody out there is doing outreach, you've got to think about if you're on the spot and an approximation or a behavior falls apart, take it one step back to the last successful approximation. I don't know, Danny's out there. Danny, I'm sure, has had this happen during shows. Danny does shows at the zoo, and I know that there are those moments during a show or a performance or an outreach where you go, oh no, oh, that wasn't what I expected. um, yeah, Joanna's asking, how do we know the bird was scared? Joanna was at that incident, the infamous cockatoo flying into the wall incident. So
Well, and
you
for
just
anyone
kind of
who wasn't, we had an umbrella cockatoo. He was trained to do different behaviors. He was very, very used to, he had been desensitized to large groups. He had been desensitized to a lot of different things because I use him for a lot of programming. One thing he was not desensitized to, which I found out afterward, the light from a projector startled him. So that was something brand new that I didn't think was going to be an issue for him because he has a history of doing so many other different things and not having an issue with them. But it was an issue. So you may have things like that pop up as well, where it's like you may need to change the setting. You may need to change the time of your training session. Certain animals
Mhm.
definitely train better at certain times of day. It's sort of like us. I think we all have where our ideal productive window is in the day, and it differs from person to person. I'm an early morning person. Uh, I know Robin's a fairly early morning person, but then I have other friends that they're most productive at 1 in the morning, and I am fast asleep. So
Mhm.
we're not quite lining up there.
No, and it's true. You just got like I said, the art form of training. You've really got to think about all these different factors. Mary asked a question here. She said, once her bird has learned a behavior that may not be needed constantly, like taking meds from a syringe, how often should I go back to practicing it to keep him familiar with it? Things like that those kind of behaviors are so very important. And I don't know about you, Jack, but I would just kind of work it in every day, every couple days, and it doesn't have to be meds. It can be, water. It can be just so that the bird stays familiar. So it's not like, oh, I remember that from the last time I had, the yucky med. Cause that's a really great point, Mary, that you bring up that, when you shape a behavior, when you take, you put all your approximations together, you shape that behavior, it doesn't just magically stay there forever. You've got to keep going over it. And with syringe training, which is something we're going to I think we're probably going to do a session on syringe training. But syringe training is one of those really difficult ones because if you get your bird to syringe trained with juice or something that's really yummy, and then they get put on a med, you give them that med, the med is horrible, and all of a sudden now the bird is like, wait a minute, that's not what came out of the syringe the last time. I'm not so sure I want to do this anymore. So you need to kind of keep making the syringe a positive experience. Jack, what do you want to weigh in on that question?
Yeah, I would say, we all want to train all of our animals to do all the things. But one thing a lot of professional animal trainers, if you go to lectures, one thing they don't talk about, you have a set amount of time in the day. And I know that a lot of you would love to be training your animals 24/7, but that's just not feasible. So, one piece of advice I would say is to prioritize what behaviors are going to be the most useful. So, for me, for example, one of the most useful things to train a bird to do is going to be scale training an animal, because getting a weight on an animal is probably the most useful diagnostic tool you have. So I'd recommend doing scale training at least once a week. Something like crate training your animal is highly useful, but it's a little bit more difficult because, especially if you have something like a macaw, the macaw is pretty big. Where are you going to put this crate that is big enough to hold a macaw that is not impeding the flow of your life? So I would say go through your list of behaviors that your animal does, prioritize them by what is going to be the most important for you. And obviously, that's going to depend on the individual animal. If you have an older bird or a bird with recurring health issues, syringe training would probably rank a little bit higher than, a brand new hand-fed bird that's in excellent health.
Absolutely. And I think too, Mary, some of the approximations that go into shaping the syringe behavior can be used for other things. So tonight we're going to talk about target training and beginning target training. And that's one of those things that is the approximations that go into target training, shaping that behavior can be used for other things. So it's kind of like, we've talked about you take this piece out and you use it for this, you take that piece out and you use it for that. And by breaking things down into small approximations, you've got certain little pieces that are already trained and you can use them to build for other behaviors. So Jack, so what do you need? What do we need to target train?
Well, we're target training, so we maybe need a target. Oh, okay. I got one. But okay, wait.
Wait,
So everybody at home may not have one.
no,
So,
everybody does have, eh, eh, everybody does have a target.
what target do they have at home, Robin? Okay.
Oh, wait,
Um,
wait.
Depending on the animal, yeah. So a fingertip, a fist, any of the a spoon that is safe for your bird to touch, like anything that is safe for your bird to touch, can be a target. So target training is just teaching a bird to touch something that you present, but having a designated target pole, or rather a target stick. We've had this discussion. I call it a target pole because I train bigger animals. Having a designated target stick tends to make you feel legitimate because I have special tools just for training this animal. And they're not necessarily that complex or that difficult. So I wanted to show you guys real quick. So if you wanted to make one like these that I have right here, here I actually have a set of chopsticks. They do have one end that is going to be tapered. I have a set of pony beads, and I am going to basically apply a pony bead to the end of this chopstick. It always goes a lot easier when I know people aren't watching me on camera. Uh, there we go. So there's one right there. So here's another one, maybe. Go ahead, Robin, do your sound effects.
Unless your bird bit it off, you have a finger. This is true. We're really hoping we haven't got to that point. So
Right.
super easy to make. You can, any piece of, it depends. How difficult, we've talked before about, and you can play the drum when you're done. Mary brings up such a good point. Jane has a chop. So Jane, do you go out for like chopstickable food on a regular basis? I don't know. I might have just made that up. I'm not sure.
I think she's craving Chinese.
Oh, she is. I might be. There's no good Chinese in my town. So anyway, all right. So we need a target stick. So now we've got that down. We've got target sticks. We've got a plethora of target sticks. And they're easy to make. And if anybody needs a target stick, we can help with that. If you need a target stick, we can work on that. We could do a workshop on how to make target sticks.
I mean, maybe we do, if because I feel like we are also starting to get people who train things other than birds, people who take care of things other than birds. And obviously, if you guys have animals other than, companion parrots in your life, we do want to hear about them because we want to tailor these sessions to what would be useful to you guys. If you have anything you would like us to talk about, we'd love to. But one thing that we could definitely do a session on if you want is preparing target poles in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different durabilities for a wide array of species. Because there's a lot of ways to do it.
So we've got the target stick down, I think, but target training itself is one of my favorite tools in the training toolbox, because I think it really, so Heather says she learned to use a flattened palm with dogs. So that absolutely, you can do that. So on rocket surgery, wait, what? Sorry, I'm being distracted by your comments. You guys are fun. So if you got our target stick, and now we need to talk about your cues and your bridges. So when you're going to do target training, we've talked about this before, but we need to be careful with a cue that it's not something that is going to be heard all the time. So Jack, what kind of cues would you suggest for people?
So for target training, the zoo standard, the most common thing you are going to hear is going to be target, and you will also hear touch. I wouldn't use something like, obviously if I have a target and I want the bird to come over to it, I don't want to say, come here, because the bird is going to be much more likely to hear that from you, from other people that are wanting to interact with the bird, because you want the bird to come over here and interact with you. But if you say, come here, in a situation like that outside of training, your bird, if you inadvertently offer a cue, your bird is going to look for reinforcement somewhere. And if you don't offer it, then the next time you're doing a training session and offer that cue, the animal's going to say, well, why should I interact with you? You didn't reinforce me last time. I don't want to do this anymore.
So if we look at the definition of cue, we've talked about before, it's signals to the animal that reinforcement will be available if a particular requested behavior is performed. So again, you've got to be careful with your cues, what you're asking for. And, do you remember that old saying, like, be careful what you wish for? Be careful what you ask for. You want it to be something that's the situation where you use it. That's when that, phrase or word, whatever it may be, is really, that's what you want, not just kind of throwing words around. The other thing is, with bridges, we've got to make sure that the bridge is not something that's completely, a common word that you're going to say all the time. So if, good boy or good job or those kind of things get used ad nauseum. So we really want to be careful when you're creating your bridge. So Karen says, and a gray will say, come here, the next time you go into its room. So the gray will turn it around on you and be training you. It's so true. So with a bridge, things like I'm working with someone right now who's using thank you as a bridge. And it's great because that's what you say when you something that you like happens. Thank you. Oh, thank you. And that works for her. I know people who have used really like different kinds of words, things that they wouldn't ever say in communication. So what do you use as a bridge, Jack, when you're training?
So one of my favorite, we've discussed this, one of my favorite things is a whistle. And I also like clickers, because the best benefit you're going to have to either clicker training or whistle training an animal, it is not a sound you can replicate without having a clicker and a whistle. And if you can, I want to know about it, and there better be video, because I am willing to bet that will be immensely entertaining for me. But it's just one thing that's going to, it's not like a clicker or a whistle on its own is going to make you a better trainer. You can accomplish just as many things with a verbal bridge, but it is going to put you in the mindset of, okay, I am officially training right now. And when you are not officially training, you don't have the ability to offer that bridge.
Okay. And that makes sense. I know personally for me, I don't use a clicker because I'm not coordinated enough. So you just have to pick something that you're only going to use for that. And it may even be the inflection that you use. If you can replicate an inflection every single time, then you can use that as your bridge. So Mary says that she got the evil eye today when she didn't give a reward immediately when her bird went to the perch that she's training him on before she even told him to perch. So if you didn't ask for something, Mary, then that reinforcement doesn't happen. I have a dog that I worked with who lives in my house, Charlie. And I trained Charlie to put his toys away. Charlie will now go and take toys off his bed, which is where he puts them away, and carry them into the middle of the room, drop them in the middle of the room, pick them back up, and go put them on the bed. And then he's accomplished that he put the toy on the bed. But I didn't request it. So at that point, he does not get reinforced for it. So,
and
yeah.
For a lot of people, that is a difficult concept because I've been training this behavior. So then as soon as the animal starts volunteering that behavior, they want to reinforce it. But what you need to remember is if you are not giving a cue and the animal's doing that behavior, what you are reinforcing is the animal throwing that behavior at you whenever it wants. And that's where you basically get to the point of you're not training the animal is training you. The cue that the animal is giving you is the behavior, and the behavior it wants you to do is giving it a reinforcer.
Turn it around. I want to go back 1 second. Michelle had asked a question about that she adopted a green cheek and that he's taken to her, and how does she get him to take to her daughter? So Michelle, I think target training is something that could help with this. So target training, I think for me, target training is the answer to so much. Target training is a simple behavior or a simple training technique that can get so many things taken care of. So Jack, do you have is Mika home?
He is actually very excited by your voice. So I don't know how this training session will go. We'll try it with him, and if it doesn't work with him, I'll just be the animal, and you can be training me through this. But I know people want to see a bird, so let me see if Mika is interested in doing this.
Okay, so while you're getting Mika, Michelle, I would say that if your daughter, I don't know how old your daughter is, but if your daughter can manage some target training with the green cheek, I think it would be great. I'd let the green cheek settle in a little bit, where you say he's new to the situation, but it's something worth trying. So the first step in target training is to make sure you've got the bird's attention.
Hi, Mika bird. I think you have the bird. And then the bird got startled.
Mika got startled, and Mika is super distracted. Yes. I personally would not continue. We can try it again, give it another shot, but I wouldn't try training Mika to do target training at this point, just because Mika's like, yeah, I'm all about other things. This is not a situation where Mika's gonna want to learn. And that's critical. When you're doing target training or any kind of training, you've got to make sure that you have the animal's attention, because if you don't, you're like wasting your time. It's that old saying about teaching a pig to sing. Not so much. Not so much. So, all right. So Jack, when you're doing target training, the first thing I'm going to do, so I've got Jack's attention. Hopefully, maybe not. Oh, I guess I didn't. I have Jack's attention. Jack, we're going to do a target training session. So Jack is willing participant. So now Jack's distracted. Okay, but that's all right. I can wait. All right, so I've got Jack's attention. So you guys are all like, oh my goodness. So the first thing I'm going to ask Jack to do is I need to establish that Jack is not, completely going to lose his mind when I offer this target stick. So I'm going to put it up here. Jack's backing away. Okay. So I'm going to try it again. I'm going to ask Jack, touch. So I reinforce Jack right there because Jack is looking at the target stick. If Jack's never seen this before, he's looking at it. So I'm going to reinforce there. All right. Jack is really interested. Jack, touch. Thank you. Thank you. So Patricia, there are so many different reinforcers for Jack. It's difficult to reinforce him through the screen. But I have a whole toolkit full of reinforcers. So obviously this is the simplified version of how you do target training, but that's how simple it is. So you introduce the target stick. If the bird doesn't, move or the animal doesn't completely move away, okay, you're going to reinforce. For some birds that are a little bit more skittish, the fact that they stay on the same perch or they stay in the same room, for those of you that have flighted birds, it's really about them exhibiting what you define as calm behavior. So you're getting that. Okay, great. The next you ask for that. You ask them to touch it, touch. And if they lean, before we were talking about those small approximations, a lean is enough for some birds.
Yeah. And we
Go
did
ahead,
have
Jeff.
someone that mentioned that earlier that, obviously the goal, the finished behavior is, we're going to hold up a target and we're going to touch it. But when you're working on that, moving towards it is something that you're going to reinforce. And honestly, so earlier when we were training Jack, at the point that Jack slowly backed away from the target, at the point that Jack stopped, you may need to reinforce that because
Right.
he stopped moving away from the target. Now, this is where recording is going to be useful because if you reinforce as he's backing away, you basically are encouraging him to move away from the target. And these things can happen pretty quickly. So again, having somebody watch you, having a video recorded session is going to help you more than you realize.
And the movements can be super subtle. You may be watching and you're like, oh no, he's not moving, but he's moving backwards. He's slowly moving backwards. And you just need to really key in on what's going on with that animal. And the fact that Jack didn't get up and leave, the fact that, Jack was still in the picture, that's a positive. Like Nancy said before, this is the comment from before, that she learned the importance, a shift in weight or the slightest movement toward a desired object. That weight shift on birds is crucial. When you're looking at birds, a lot of times a weight shift means they're going to fly. And so you've got to be that very subtle movement is something that you should be aware of. So, all right. So we've got the basics of target training. So yeah, Michelle, I think that's great. Once he settles in, I would definitely try, to kind of work on that with him and see how you can improve that relationship. And again, it's that give and take of training that builds that relationship. And with target training, sometimes you're dealing with birds or animals that are in protected contact. Jack and I have talked about this, and some birds you may not be, when they first come into your home or your setting, they may not be able to be handled. And so target training is a great way to do protected training. You want to explain that a little bit more, Jack?
Yeah, so like we said, training is going to be a great way for you to build on your relationship with your animal. Target training, especially, you can use something like your fingertip, but if you are using something like a target stick, you have the ability to confidently interact with an animal in a way that they're not as worried about you. You're not as worried about them biting. You can build that relationship. Protected contact target training for anyone who says they have a bird. I don't know how many times I've heard that, oh, that bird is awful. It wants nothing to do with me. It hates me. It just wants to bite me. Protected contact target training can be the key that unlocks everything. And
Mhm.
you may realize that your bird needs to remain a protected contact animal. Some birds have been through a lot before they come into our care, and you can't necessarily overcome that to the extent that they're going to behave like another bird. But you can definitely get a bird to the point where maybe it won't step up on your hand, but it can step up onto a perch. It's
Mhm.
not going to target to your finger, but it can target to a target pole or a target stick. And building this easy behavior is the first step in developing that training relationship. So, for anyone who has a bird that they don't think their bird can learn, they don't think it's going to be useful, try it because I promise I have seen it work with birds, not just parrots. I've seen it work with birds that are far less intelligent, far more
Mhm.
skittish, and I guarantee you it can work for your birds.
Absolutely. And I think you're building that relationship. We're talking with Michelle here about a new bird and her daughter building that relationship. And I think suddenly for this positive behavior, her daughter becomes the bringer of reinforcement, the very positive aspect of that. And it's not a situation where there's that defensive posture on the trainer's part that so often comes with maybe a new bird. Or Patricia says here, protected contact's a powerful tool to help with frightened birds. Absolutely. A target stick or an object that you're having them target to is not as intimidating in some cases for birds that come with bad histories where, maybe they were manhandled or maybe they were in a situation where they weren't, always treated gently, and hands become something that's terrifying. So now you've got this target stick. The animal is still in its cage, which for all intents and purposes is a safe place. It's, the nest cavity, if you will. And it's not as it's not as overwhelming, and it's not asking for so much. It's asking in the safety of that cage, in that place that's that animal's home. Then you're asking for a very simple behavior. You're not asking it to come out at that point, but you can. That's kind of the next approximation with target training is you can move animals that you might not be, Jack mentioned this bird may not step up on your hand, but it'll step up on a perch. Or maybe it won't even step up on a perch for you, a handheld perch, but it'll come out to a play stand. And you can use that target to get that bird to move along. You start with protected. Okay, we're safe. Life is good. Now we're moving. And if you can move a bird and never have to touch it, a bird that has, a history of being, fearful of hands or exhibiting what you term as aggressive behavior with hands, a target stick is going to offer you that opportunity to move that bird safely for you and for the bird.
Yeah,
So,
I think a big thing that people forget about with protected contact is that it is safer and more comfortable for everyone involved. If you're training
mhm,
your bird using protected contact, you're not worried about the bird biting you as much as if you were in a free contact situation. If you are training that bird in protected contact, the bird is not as worried about you grabbing it or anything else that it may have in its history. So, it's definitely a great first step. in terms of working with a fearful bird and working with a skittish bird. But targeting is also the first step of so many different physical behaviors. Like, we can't even get into the full list tonight because there are so many things. But some examples of behaviors, I'll throw some out, and then I'm sure Robin will have some she wants to add as well. If you've ever seen a bird wave, where it picks up its foot when you cue it to wave, you can train that using a target. If you've seen a bird turn in a circle, you can train that using a target. I have trained Grayson, the umbrella cockatoo that I work with at the farm. You guys have seen him before. He showcased a lot of different training behaviors for you guys. Grayson knows, give me a kiss, and he will target to the side of my face, which for little kids, they think it looks like he is giving me a kiss on the side of my face. So all of those are applications of target training. Robin, what else do you have?
Well, and I think, Michelle just asked a question about her bird goes out, but he doesn't want to go back in. You can very easily target him back into the cage. So when he's out on that play stand, or he's out, interacting with you and your family, so you put the target stick inside, and now that he has to go inside to touch that target stick to actually complete that behavior. And if you've got the approximation of touch down, then you can easily move him back into that cage. The other thing you can do, scale training. So again, if you've got a bird that'll target him onto that perch on that scale, and now you've got scale training down. A syringe, touching a syringe with a beak is a form of target training. So there's so many, I mean, like Jack said, we could go on and on as far as that's concerned, but the target is that small step. It's what gets you to that bigger behavior in so many cases. And I think it's really about how do you problem solve? How do you get things to happen? And one of the things I've talked about with people is a lot of people want to have their birds interact with a lot of different people. A target stick is a very safe way for you to allow your bird to interact with other people. And I got to tell you, people who don't do training, people who don't have animals in their lives all the time, if they can get a bird or an animal to do something on cue, it's like fireworks. So, your sister-in-law comes over and she's terrified of birds and she doesn't want to deal with them. Then you get out the target stick, and all she has to do is say touch or whatever that cue may be. The bird does it. All of a sudden, your sister is joining the circus. Your sister-in-law is joining the circus, and she's going to run away and be a trainer.
Well, and you can explain, here's how this is going to work. Here's what we're going to do. And a lot of times in those situations, people will not believe that they can do that. So then when you've walked them through this and you've got them to elicit a behavior from an animal, they're going to look at you as though you are made of magic, because you are communing with animals and you are forging this mystical relationship between, the natural world and people who don't even like to go outside. That's one of the things that I have to contend with a lot. Getting people who don't necessarily want to be outside to recognize the impact that they can have on animals, and vice versa. So that's going to be a great situation for you, for that animal, and for the person that you're interacting with. So I think that's a great option.
All right. So really, we've done the basics on target training. It is one of the witches. We are absolutely witches, Patricia says. It's true. Magical. I think we need some of those sorcerer's hats. Jack and I need to get those. But so we've talked about target training. We've talked about shaping. We've talked about approximations. I think it might be time for a trivia question, Jack. But what are we giving away for this trivia question?
Okay, so if you guys were not aware, Robin and I were going to be hosting another workshop. A lot of people liked our foraging toy parts, bring your own parts workshop. So this one, we are doing the Parrot PVC Workshop. So this workshop is going to be designed for building items out of PVC for your birds. PVC is going to have a lot of benefits. It is easy to clean, which is one of my favorite things about it. It is fairly inexpensive. It is fairly durable. It checks most of the boxes. So we're going to be doing things like stands. We're going to be building a variety of different toys out of PVC that can then be reused again and again. We will talk about scaling these items to size. So if you're worried, if you have a conure, we're going to talk to you about how to make items for that conure. If you have a blue and gold macaw, we will talk to you about how to make items for that blue and gold macaw. If you have an emu, we can talk to you about how some of these items can be done for an emu. So, it's going to apply to a lot of different people.
So we are going to be giving away a pass to this workshop, which is Saturday, March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And okay, are we ready? Jack, do you want to ask the question?
I got to remember what the question was. Oh, okay. This one, we've been talking about it all day, so y'all should be able to answer this. Your trivia question, and just so everyone knows, me and Robin do not pick the winner. Nick is able to go through the chat. He can follow the timestamps. So the first person to give what he deems the closest to the answer will be the winner. If you guys do not win, blame Nick, but that's why we don't let you see Nick, because then you don't know who to be mad at. He's just our man behind
question.
So our question is going to be, what is an approximation?
So we talked about this, and so don't despair. If you don't get the answer, if you're not the first person to answer this question correctly, we are going to be giving away t-shirts to the next 5 people who sign up for the workshop. So after we're done with this, the next 5 people to sign up at the leatherelves.net will receive a free t-shirt. All right, so it looks like we have an answer. A small step to a All right, Adrian, congratulations. So Adrian will be part of the Zoom meeting for the Parrot PVC Workshop. And I will include Adrian when I send out the Zoom invitations. If not, you can, so Adrian's the winner. If you would like to attend, you can sign up at theleatherelves.net. Julie's got her Leather Elf shirt on now. I wish that this was a Zoom call so we could see it. But so the next 5 people, I will keep track of that as they come in. We will send you guys out a Leather Elves t-shirt. And then we came close tonight. We really did. We got to 31, I think. Nick was the highest we got tonight, I believe. So we're close. Next week, if we can get to 50, there will be, what will there be, Jack?
A special prize. Do we need to go more in depth than that?
No, special prize works.
Okay.
So there'll be a special prize next week if we get to 50. Ooh, look at those. It may or may
not be on the screen right now.
Those are pretty cool shirts. How do I get one of those, Jack?
So I actually have a store set up for High Red Bird. So it's going to be at highredbird.threadless.com. I have links to that available on every single YouTube video that's posted up. So if you just go to one of the YouTube videos, if you can't remember how to get to it, all the links will be in the description section there. It looks like, did Nick even put a QR code on the screen right now?
He did.
Nick is kind of fancy.
He
Now,
is.
one thing I want to tell people about the PVC workshop, in case they didn't notice, you do still have a little bit of time left to register for the event in its entirety, but you only have, I believe, one more day to register with early bird pricing. Is that correct?
Yes, tomorrow is the last day for tonight and tomorrow. You can still get the early bird special, which is $15 to register for the PVC workshop. And after that, it's still only $20 after that. But if you do it tonight or tomorrow, you can save those $5 to buy bird seed or bird toys, or you can put it towards a shirt at High Redbird. So there's all these different things you could do with that extra $5 if you sign up tonight or tomorrow. But I think, and there was a QR code on the slide or the screen with the PVC workshop as well. So again, thank you, Nick, for making these things happen for us. It fascinates me. Nick's just like, oh yeah, I got that. It's all taken care of. So, all right. Is there anything else? Just, again, thank you so much, guys, for being part of this. We really appreciate you spending your Friday nights with us. And we're really happy to be part of Diane Hyde's date night. So thank you, especially Diane, for being so loyal. And we want to see you all, every single Friday if you can do it. If not, like Jack said, you can watch them on High Redbird. They are also in the video section on the Leather Elves page. And really just your input makes this more fun for us. And I watch you answering each other's questions, and I know that's really helpful for people, some people who are new to the game, some people who are not. So thank you again. And Jack, is there anything you want to close with?
So again, we mentioned it at the beginning. I'll mention it again right now. If you have not already liked the Leather Elves page on Facebook, make sure that you do that, because that gives you notifications. Whenever we do a live stream, you will get a notice that this live stream is starting. We do these live streams every single Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So you want to go there to check them out. I do also share them on the High Redbird Facebook page. So it's a group where we can talk about all of these different things as well. So if you want to go ahead and like that as well, you can, make sure that you're not missing out on anything. Now, next week, we are really, really excited because we're going to be talking about a topic that we have mentioned before, which is exercise. Exercise to me is sometimes it is a good form of enrichment. Sometimes it is a form of training that we are working on to accomplish a particular goal. So it is going to depend on it. But everyone, I really think everyone with any kind of bird can benefit from exercise as a part of their care routine. So we're going to be covering that next week.
All right. And you can build a dumbbell. Just saying.
I didn't realize that was what you did.
See, Jack just gets all excited about what he's talking about, and he doesn't even notice what's happening on the other half of the screen. But Jane is watching from Australia, and so the time works for her. So that's kind of exciting. It's Saturday morning. So thank you for sharing Saturday morning brekkie, right? Is that what it is, Jane? Is that breakfast in Australia? With us. We're very excited that you're with us. So thank you all again. And I want to thank Joanna Roth and her untrainable husband and her family for having us over for dinner tonight. I want to say hi to Bernice. So thank you again, guys. And we will see you next week when we talk about exercise. And if you have anything, questions that come up, please message us. Let us know the kind of topics that you're looking for. And because Jack and I are pretty creative, but that's going to have to come to an end at some point. So we will talk to you guys next week. And thank you again for sharing Flock Talk with myself and Jack. Take care. Bye-bye.
I do need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Red Bird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!